questions. Gotcha. Gotcha. Yes, hi.
Okay, so you guys got 2 forests, right?
Yes.
Is this a single domain in each forest, or you have multiple domains in each forest?
We actually have single domains. We started out with 2 single domains in each forest, but then we had to make a child domain to implement the Unix password policy.
Okay, what about didn't you have like a Lake Hattie West and East and whatever else in there?
Well, those are just the shipping departments. And we made OUs and had...
Right, we just separate them by creating OUs for them.
Okay, so when you did the OUs for those, were those OUs, because you said
it was
later on,
we had a shipping OU, and underneath that we had a Denver OU, and then a Knoxville OU.
okay, so you did based off of the department first and then the location
Right.
after that? Okay.
Right.
Okay. All right, so you said you guys created 2 forests, and what type of trust did you create between the 2 forests?
A two-way trust.
Forest trust.
2-way forest trust in there? Okay. Were they non-transitive or transitive trusts? Transitive trusts on there?
Yes.
Okay. All right. You got your forwarder set up, right, on DNS?
Yes, we do.
Okay, you did conditional forwarding on the internal side and just normal, regular,
Standard forwarding for the
just
external.
pointing out to
Yes.
whatever your
According
ISP
to our
is.
ISPs,
DNS
DNS
itself,
servers.
off of there. Why did you even do a regular one to the ISP as opposed to just going straight out to the internet and getting that stuff resolved? Why were you using the ISP's DNS at all?
Well, so that we can prevent outside users from being able to access the names
We still needed internal users to be able to access the internet.
outside.
Right, so if you didn't have anything inside of the regular forwarding, they wouldn't be able to get answers from
We
outside?
disabled recursion. So in order for them to be able to access the outside, we still have to have a standard
Did you guys
forward.
get rid of your DNS cache? The cache file? That goes out to the root servers?
That's what the ISPs, they're the ones that have the
Okay.
access to the root servers.
Okay, and then you guys also set up ADI, right? Active Directory Integrated?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got Active Directory Integrated, which would be on your, let's say, Lake Hattie side. How many DNS servers did you have on Lake Hattie side? How many domain controllers did you have on there?
We have 3.
You had 3 domain controllers?
Yeah,
Okay.
3 on each side.
Okay, so the conditional forwarding there, was that from Lake Hattie to Elk Island? And conditional forwarding from Elk Island to Lake Hattie
Correct.
itself?
Correct.
And the ADI is with inside of Lake Hattie between those domain controllers with inside of there, right? Okay. All right. Why'd you choose forwarding as opposed to, or is there any other method you could have chosen other than
We
forwarding?
chose conditional forwarding because it's more secure.
In what way?
Well, if we decide to go with stub zones, then they would have access to all our DNS servers in the forest. So we want to keep them separate and not have them, give all the DNS servers. So we just kept it as we just did conditional forwarding. So they just have access to that one DNS server, and they'll do all the resolving for it.
Okay, what happens if those DNS servers change their IP address?
DNS servers were set up with
What's that?
the DNS servers were set up with static IP addresses.
Right, what happened if at some point in time you guys change IP address or change your scheme and whatever else in there? What would happen to your implementation of your conditional forwarding?
Was that going to be changed?
Since we did conditional forwarding, it would automatically change.
It would automatically change?
No, we would have to change it, I believe.
Okay, and then you guys did password policies?
Yes.
At what level of the enterprise did you link the password policy to?
At the domain.
At the domain level in there? Okay, so you have in Lake Hattie, you had a forest, you had one domain, and then you said you had a subdomain, a child domain at one point in time, or eventually get a child domain?
At Lake Hattie, yes, we did.
Okay,
We did.
so how,
Child.
if you do it at the domain level, which domain did you do it at?
The shipping.
So
I'm
the
sorry.
password's just for the shipping domain?
We made a shipping domain so that we can implement that password policy there.
Okay, and what
Because
was,
it was just for the shipping to make it compatible with the Unix server.
okay, what about everybody that's in the Lake Hattie domain up above it? What kind of a password policy were you doing for them?
I just did a password policy that I created a policy that had.
So you create a separate one for them?
Separate policy.
Okay, so you create a
That's
separate
why I
one
had
for,
two policies.
okay, two
One for the
policies.
shipping domain, one for everybody else.
Okay, that's cool. Did you test your policies? Were you able to get around in time to
Yes,
test
we
your
did.
policy?
We did test them.
Okay, and it worked the first time?
Everything works so well. No, I just say that because it was the planning, I guess, that we did.
Yeah, it was just
Everything
amazing. Most everything worked
ran.
out the first time. We did have some hitches, but it didn't take very long to resolve them.
You always have hitches. It's
Yeah,
okay, so.
yeah, and there, yeah.
But, if, what did you use to create the policies?
The group policy management console.
Okay, where'd you get that from?
Microsoft website.
All right, so you went in there, what, if you would have had a problem, let's say for instance you had a problem with the policy for whatever reason, who knows, anything could happen in there. What tool inside of there would have given you the ability to try to figure out which policy is being applied, which policy is not being applied, and so forth? Picture the GPMC and picture down all the way near the bottom,
Oh, the group policy objects.
even further down.
It's the one that shows the status of.
Yeah.
all of them.
Yeah, the GP results and the modeling
Yeah,
capabilities.
yeah, but
Okay.
it showed all the status of.
Okay. Did you guys at least try the modeling before you just implemented it into your network?
Did we try what?
Try to run through the modeling process to see what would be applied, as opposed to just sticking the policy straight into the.
Well, probably initially she wanted to, but she got, five
Outvoted.
guys here, so, you know how we are. We just throw it in, let's see how it works.
Slap it in and we'll troubleshoot it later.
There you go. That's because you only had 3 days, 4 days to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Troubleshoot it as it goes along. All right. Okay, you guys did RAS and VPN
Correct.
Yes.
implementation. Which protocol did you use for your VPN?
We set it to automatic. That way, if there were any legacy systems, that it'd be able to use PPTP. Whereas if we set it to do just L2TP with IPsec, we would need certificates and pre-shared keys. So we just left it automatic.
Okay, you set to automatic with L2TP and it's using IPsec. Do you guys implement IPsec?
We didn't. We just left it at PPTP. I mean, automatic, and just let whatever's connected to it.
Okay. So you didn't do any kind of IPsec policies to set up to make sure it
No.
applies off there? Okay.